When Sarah was small, she used to always be afraid of the dark. She hated the dark even more now, and she hated her own shadow. It started when she was 7 years old. Her and her twin sister were in their room, and they borrowed a horror book from their mom. Sarah was spooking her twin sister Katie out by pretending there was shadows going to get her, and they were on the wall. Sarah realized that she could make shadows on the wall and spooked Katie out every time she turned around. Suddenly something fell, and Katie got such a fright she backed back and fell off her bunk bed and out the top story window and was killed instantly. 15 years later, Sarah still gets flashbacks every time she sees her own shadow. She went to counselling and everything over it. She knew she had to get rid of her fear. She knew it was awful what happened, but she knew she had to finally put it behind her. She wasn't going to look at her shadow anymore. What Sarah couldn't see, as she was walking down the street, is her own shadow take out a knife. Suddenly she heard a voice saying, "Don't you think you can outrun your shadow?" Sarah was certain she had shook off her obsession of her shadow, but turned around because she knew that the voice was not in her head. She froze in horror because in all the years she just saw her shadow, not her shadow moving differently than her, and definitely not her shadow holding a knife. Suddenly the shadow lunged the knife into her and walked into her, then healed instantly and walked down the street. Katie was practicing walking down the street. "Hi, my name is Sarah. Thanks for watching the Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content." It was a nice summer's night in July, and Adam was walking down a nice quiet country road near his house when he suddenly heard a noise. He stopped and tried to see where it was coming from. Suddenly he spotted an elderly woman right in front of him. He wondered how he hadn't seen her before. Adam asked, "Are you okay?" The lady spoke. "I am so sad, young man. You see, my husband died just last week, and I miss him so much. We were so united, and him dying has left me with such a void. I sometimes wake up thinking he is standing at the bottom of my bed smiling, but then he just fades away." "Oh, I'm sorry to be loading all my problems on you, young man." Adam said, "Are you sure you're okay to get home? If you like, I can walk with you. And don't worry, I don't mind hearing people's problems. Also, I am so sorry to hear about your husband. Is there any way I can help you in anything?" The lady smiled a warm smile at Adam and said, "Oh dear no, young man, I'm okay. I'm just a silly old woman, but if you like, you can walk me home. I just live down the road." Adam and the lady walked down the road, and about 10 minutes later they came to a house, which was the lady's. The lady said, "Oh my dear Lord, I forgot to even tell you. My name is Mary. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea or coffee? It would really cheer me up to have someone to talk to me. All alone in this house, I feel like the walls are closing in around me." Adam agreed and said he would love a cup of tea, and when he walked into the kitchen, he got a start thinking that there was no one in the house, because that is what the lady had just told him. But he saw a man standing right in front of him with a toolbox beside him. Suddenly the man said, "Okay, here's the deal. You have pieces of wood right here, and I'll give you tools to you make your own coffin, and if you don't continue to make it, then I'm going to shoot you in different areas. The first will be your foot, the second will be your knee, the third your stomach, the fourth, well, you get my drift." Adam froze in fear. 10 minutes later, Adam had made the coffin, worried what was going to happen next, hoping the worst wouldn't have to happen, where the man would shoot him and put him in the box. Adam said to Mary's husband, "I'm not going to get in any coffin, so you might as well shoot me in the head right now." The man was shouting, and about a minute later couldn't take any more and lifted his gun to Adam's head and pulled the trigger. The gun made a clicking sound, and the man cursed himself there were no bullets in it. Mary stood in fear as Adam took out a gun from his pocket and shot her husband. Adam turned to Mary. "Okay, lady, where's my money?" Mary gave him the money she promised Adam for killing her husband. She couldn't deal with her serial killer husband anymore, bringing back innocent people to the house to build their own coffin or be tortured. I was sitting at home one night scrolling through different social media platforms, and then decided to take a selfie from my Instagram account. But what I saw when I checked the photo was something totally unexplainable. I was looking at the photo to see did it come out right, and when I looked next to it, I could see a photo of me sleeping in my bed. I couldn't understand how it got there, and I felt a shiver run up my spine. Whoever took this photo had to have been in my house, on my phone, to take that photo. The weirdest thing is, I live alone. That night, I set up a hidden video camera to film myself in my room while sleeping. I was afraid to go to sleep. I found it very hard to fall asleep, but finally I did. Suddenly, I heard a bang at the window and awoke, thinking it must be an intruder. But when I went over to the window, there was a bird outside which must have banged against my window. My wife died last year in a car accident, and whenever I see a bird like that, I think it's her looking out for me. I looked at the clock. It was 2:30. I put off the alarm as I wanted to sleep in. The next day I was looking through the video, and a cold shiver ran up my spine. Just before 2:30, I was sitting up on my bed asleep, holding a knife, and was just about to stab myself when the bird hit the window, causing me to drop the knife and fall down on the bed and then wake up instantly. I couldn't believe my eyes. But now I know that when I see a bird hovering around me, I know it's my wife watching over me. Tracy was very upset after her husband went missing 20 years ago. Her husband Barry was only 30 when he disappeared. Tracy still used to sit crying looking through photo albums of better times. She used to find it hard to look at photos of her and her husband, but she wanted to keep his memory alive. Tracy tried different techniques to contact her husband. She visited a psychic and even had a seance, but nothing worked. Lately, she had a huge urge to dig a hole in her garden at a particular spot. She went out one day into the spot where she had the urge to dig and began digging. She didn't know where she was getting her energy from, but she kept on digging and digging and digging. It eventually got too dark, so she had to call it a day. The next morning, she was out doing the same thing, digging and digging and digging, until eventually, when she was over 30 feet down, she came across a door. She wondered what was the door doing over 30 feet underground. She turned the doorknob, expecting it to be just the door stuck in the dirt. But to her surprise, she opened it to a beautiful landscape. She thought she was dreaming. Then a man that looked familiar stood in front of her and said, "You bitch." Tracy couldn't believe her eyes, but knew that the man standing next to her was her husband Barry, who would now be 50. Then suddenly Tracy woke up, thinking what a strange dream. The first thing she'd done, even though she knew it was a dream, was go out to the garden where she dug the huge hole in the dream. Of course there was no hole, but she thought of something. What if she dug a little? Not 30 feet, but just a little. She had the urge to dig, and she knew she was awake this time. A few minutes later she began digging. She hit